Cogswell. I'm just going to do a quick intro and then turn things over to Aileen, who's going to lead the discussion. As we've kind of joked about, we know today we're going to get a lot of folks that are people managers and also, as we love to call them, contact center geeks. So welcome. And I also want to mention that NECCF Northeast Contact Center Forum is in its 23rd year. We're a volunteer organization. So it's your organization. So please, get engaged. Obviously you are today if you're listening to this. And follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn being the dominant one, obviously. So we'd appreciate that. You can follow us on the NECCF page. And also the conference and expo that we run every year at Gillette Stadium is coming up June 4th. That's a big deal, big event, usually 30 to 40 vendors, 350 to 400 people. Early bird pricing, I think, ends March 1st, if I remember correctly. So if you want to sign up, now's the time to do so. And as I always like to tell people, bring your IT buddy. I've had IT people come to our conference and expo and go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize there was all this technology. So yes, technology to elevate the customer experience, right? So without further ado, again, I'm going to turn it over to Aileen from Citizens Bank, but she's also a board member of NECCF. NECCF. I can say it. Aileen.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction. And welcome everyone for joining our virtual workshop related to recognition to ignite engagement. It's something very near and dear to my heart. I think there is so much power in recognition and how we leverage it in our contact center. In our contact centers is something as simple as a smile to as elaborate as an expense-paid trip to Disney World. But in between is where all the secret magic is in recognition. And we have a panel put together today of some subject matter experts in the area. And I'm going to have them each introduce themselves. But before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. One, you're all going to be placed in mute. We do encourage participation, so please check your chat button. We will have Q&A throughout, but mainly at the end. So if you do have any questions or you're running into any difficulties, post in the chat. John's going to be monitoring that for us throughout. And also, I hope you are seeing my presentation. So we've got the recognition to ignite engagement on the screen. To the right, you'll see a QR code. It's for feedback on today's session. I know many of you may have to drop a little early. I know we are taking up your lunchtime and we do appreciate that. We hope it's of value. And to find out if there's value, your feedback's important. So if you want to take a picture of that QR code now, that way you have it and you'll be ready to give feedback. I will be showing it again at the end, but really important because you know what, we're in contact centers and it's all about feedback to help improve us in our next interaction. All right, so as we are going to dig in, I do have three, as I said, subject matter experts in different areas related to recognition. I'm going to ask that they each introduce themselves. So I am going to change my screen now and know that QR code will show up again. But we have Jessica Nile from Maine Health, Jess Pesta from Citizens, and Rebecca Hasselman from Leominster Credit Union. And what I'd like to do is throw it over to Jessica Nile from Maine Health. Jessica, if you could do a brief introduction, let us know who you are and why you're excited to participate today.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's exciting to be here today. I'm thankful to be suggested to come, so thank you. I am Jessica Nile. I am the Quality Assurance Manager at Maine Health in the Patient Access Integration Department. So we're a 9-hospital organization with thousands of ambulatory practices that are under our umbrella. So we have a busy, busy job here. And that's why engagement and recognition is important to me, because we are a large organization. It always has to be on the forefront and making sure that it's a priority for everyone.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, Jess Pesta from Citizens. Jess, why don't you do a brief introduction and let us know all about you and your passion for recognition?
Yeah, thanks, Eileen. I'm super excited to be here. I think that recognition is one of the most important things we do, especially in the contact center space. I think that it should be simple, and saying thank you to our colleagues is the most important way to keep things going and letting them know that they're appreciated for a job well done, over and above the paycheck that we know we all expect to receive for our work. So excited
Great.
to be here.
Thank you. And Rebecca.
Thank you, Eileen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm super happy to be a part of today's session. My name is Rebecca Hasselman. I'm the Member Service Center Manager for Leominster Credit Union. I've been in banking for going on 10 years, and basically that entire time I've spent in some form of a member service facing role. I did spend most of that time in a branch, and just a little over a year ago, I actually transitioned over to the contact center space in the Member Service Center. And I honestly, it's been a big change, obviously, as I'm sure you all can imagine, going from branch life to contact center world, but I have loved every single minute of it. Recognition is definitely something I'm very passionate about. When I transitioned to this department, a big item on my agenda was creating like a really positive and engaging culture, and recognition has been a huge factor in that. The quote that I chose was, "If you don't create a great, rewarding place for people to work, they won't do great work." And I chose this because I really believe that recognizing our employees and our teams for the work that they do is a major driving factor in creating an environment where people feel empowered and really want to do great work. So
Yeah,
thank you
I
for
could.
having me.
Well, happy to have you, and I could not agree more. Work is so much more than just a paycheck, right? We all do need to work, but we want to love where we work. We want to feel appreciated. We want to feel recognized. And we're going to jump into a few questions related to that topic. We have 6 pertinent questions, and we're going to go through the panel and all share our experience and our answers. But I'm going to start off with you, Rebecca. Why do you feel recognition is important in the contact center environment?
So the first thing that comes to mind is one word, which is burnout, which I'm sure we are all very familiar with that word. Burnout is a very common issue in the contact center space. I actually was doing some research on some statistics around burnout. And one study showed that 74% of call center agents are at risk of burnout due to high emotional labor, and 91% experience anxiety and other mental issues, like mental health issues. So making sure that we're not only recognizing our people for the work that they do, but doing so in a way that feels good to them can be a major factor in reducing that risk of burnout. I say too, making sure that we're doing so in a way that feels good to them. One thing that I always do when I have a new employee is I have a little sheet, like a get to know you list. And at the bottom of that list, it says, "How do you like to be recognized for a job well done?" And that's a point that I want to make too, because I think it's really important to make sure that we're recognizing our people in the way that they want to be recognized, because some people like that public recognition. Some people don't want that. They're not comfortable with it. They want that more on a private level. But recognition is really a great way to help retain employees and keep them engaged. Contact centers, as we know, can be really tough places to work. And as leaders, it's really imperative that we do all that we can to keep our employees engaged and empower them to be creative. And, I know creative kind of seems like a weird word to use when talking about recognition and engagement and stuff. But if you think about it kind of like a cycle, right? You start by recognizing your employees. That leads to a really engaged, empowering, creative environment. That environment is then going to lead to high performance and ingenuity, which is then going to kind of create these more opportunities for recognition. So it's kind of like a never-ending cycle when you can kind of get into that flow, creating that culture.
Yeah, I love that take on it. It truly is a cycle. Recognize and empower and engage so colleagues will share what's happening in their environment. What can we do to make it better? What initiatives are there? There's so much that can be done. And then you recognize them for that. And it creates a really strong cycle of a colleague feeling listened to, that they can make a change because they've been recognized for it. And to help with that burnout and also attrition. Attrition in contact centers is a real thing. And if we want best in class attrition, we need to treat our people with respect, and we need to recognize everything they bring to the table. And one thing I like to really talk about with a contact center, where the most important part of any organization. We know what is happening with our customers. Anybody that designs a product, creates a policy or procedure should come into the contact center, recognize the hard work that they're doing, and then empower them to be the voice for the customer, and just continue to make our customer service better and our agents stronger and our attrition less. It really is. It's a very powerful cycle. Jess or Jessica, anything you would like to add about why you feel recognition is important?
When I think about the contact center space, I remember being very young and taking my first contact center role right out of college, and it felt like huge, right? There were so many people in person and then different sites. So I feel like the contact center is a really big environment, and it can feel really easy for a colleague to be lost. It can feel really easy to feel like, am I just a number? Does somebody realize that I exist? Because we're not talking about a small team of 5 or 6. We're talking often hundreds or thousands of colleagues that are making up the contact center experience. And I think recognition is a great way to let our colleagues know that they are seen, they are valued, they're not able to just fly under the radar, and a way to make them feel seen in a positive way, right? I'm not just getting caught when I do something wrong, but people are paying attention. They want to know me, they want to know my skills, and they want to help me grow my career. And for my personal experience, recognition early on really helped me feel comfortable in that call center environment, which was brand new and really, really scary when I first took that step.
Yeah, it sure can be overwhelming. And it is important to know you're not just a person in a seat. You're seen and important. Jess Niall, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think what keeps coming to mind with Jess and Rebecca and their great answers to that question is value is kind of equaling recognition, right? So when we value employees, when they know that we see them, we know that they're there, and it doesn't have to be you did a great job today. It's that they're part of the organization, they're part of your department, and they're valued. To me, recognition and recognizing that brings value to make them want to try and work hard for you. So I think they're just kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, great answer. And actually a really good jumping point, because you're up for our next question.
I am.
What has your team or company done to create a culture of recognition?
Oh, I got a long one on this one. So I had to make some notes because
Good.
our organization is very large. And we have, don't quote me on this number, but around 25,000 employees. And we recently, within the last few years, we had a transition in our CEO. So organizationally, our CEO does every 2 weeks an Ask Andy. And Andy Muller is our CEO, and he does this Ask Andy every 2 weeks where he invites the entire organization. All 25,000 of us can come to this meeting. It's a virtual. And at the end, they do recognitions, which I thought was wonderful. So every 2 weeks, we get a recognition spotlight from a leadership in a certain area or division that talks about recognition for a certain individual or group or department. Also, they do a moment to shine, which is a program where we can catch people doing something nice, is what I like to call it. And it's based upon our values. So our values are patient-centered, respect, integrity, excellence, ownership, and innovation. And we can tie something that somebody did to those values, and there is at times monetary value associated with those. So at a nonprofit organization, monetary value for a job well done is very nice. So that's another thing we do organizationally. Departmentally, specific division within our division, we have an RCM open forum, which mirrors our Andy's open door. So RCM is our revenue cycle. So that makes up many, many departments within the revenue cycle. And we do the similar thing where they do offer the staff can bring up recognitions for peers as well as leaders. Leaders can bring up their departments. Team-wise, quite honestly, from my team, we rely on open, honest communication. We have a safe space where the team members can talk freely and feel comfortable to work together collaboratively and talk with each other. I think this allows them to get to know each other on that personal level, which helps them feel comfortable at that point, congratulating them on the little things, the big things, and all the things in between. And then individually, for me personally, I just need to take interest, truly take interest in my team members. It's not just said, it's valued and done. If I see something, I say something. And I do also mirror the discussion earlier around how do team members like to receive feedback. That's important as well. If I am sending an email out with, recognition of some sort, or going to do it in a meeting, I always make sure that team member is aware and they're not caught off guard and surprised. Who knows, we are virtual, but maybe they want to do their makeup that day and straighten their hair. I don't know. So you just want to make sure everybody feels comfortable with that recognition. And then a thank you. A thank you goes such a long way. And you're right, staff come to work for a job for money, but there's other things in that job that make it so meaningful to them, where at the end of the day, they can go, wow, I had a good day because I was part of this decision that helped many patients, or I was able to help a banking solution that caused a lot of opportunities for our customers. Also at the end of each month, this was actually one of the things that I did identify years ago with recognition is ask them. How do they want to be recognized? What do they want to see? One of the things my team did, small but mighty, I have 8 staff, and they said, we'd like to see a month in review of all the good things we've done. We want to showcase that. So for the last year and a half, as part of my month-end reports, I go through all of our month-end accomplishments and I send that out to my leadership as well as the team so we can re-celebrate those accomplishments together.
I love that idea. Recognition, it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive.
Nope.
It needs to have thought behind it, and it needs to be genuine. And in contact center, we do so much around the metrics, and in customer service, it's about quality and where did we fail and where did we improve. But taking time to recognize the difference they made to the business and how powerful that is, it's incredible how implementing that into your day-to-day or into your monthly review really can change the tune, because they can walk out feeling it's engagement. They walk out feeling good, like, oh, we have some areas to improve, but look at everything that we did and that we achieved.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's excellent, because it really needs to be very, like I said, thought out, planned, and consistent. So that is a great example that hopefully many on the call can embrace, because we do our business reviews, and what a nice way to do it. When I go to Rebecca, anything to add?
Yeah, so a couple things that we do kind of similarly to what Jess had talked about too is we have quarterly, like they call it a town hall meeting. So basically company wide, it's a big meeting that we have, and we get together, we have food and stuff, but a big piece of that is the recognition portion. So we've got some awards that we give out, like the managers, leaders will nominate employees for certain things that they've done, kind of coinciding with our core values over the course of the quarter. And then we give out rewards for that. And it's, this big recognition event. It's just a really, really nice kind of community feel, and everybody's genuinely rooting for each other. And then we also do, recently we started a one just for the retail segment, which is all the branches and the member service center. So we do something similar, but again, and that one's completely based off of recognition. We give rewards for all kinds of things, which is really, really great, because it's not on such a large level at that point. It's kind of, we're able to really recognize a lot more people at that point. So nobody kind of feels lost, I guess, in that sense. So that's been really, really great. And I know, my team loves it. I know the branch teams love it. And they always kind of come back from that the next day or the next week or whatever, just really feeling like very energized, and everybody's genuinely rooting for each other and congratulating each other on their different awards. And that's been really, really great as well.
Oh, I love to hear that, because if you're just doing recognition for that top 1 or 2% in a global company program, it's hard for the front line. They can get lost, right? Because they're having wins every day. They might be small wins that aren't going to win them a chairman award, but they still should be recognized. So to create that program so you're touching everyone, it really is powerful. Jess Pesta, you're next up for a question, and your question kind of will probably tag into the one we just had. What tools and programs do you have in place to support recognition? I know you've done quite a bit in this space.
So when I think about recognition, one of the things that I really think about is you're going to have people at every organization who really lean into it, love it, and get involved with it. And for some people, that comes incredibly naturally. It's just a part of how they live their life. They say thank you, they show gratitude, and they're just pros, right? They're going to do it no matter what you put in place, no matter what structure you give them. But for others, it takes a little bit more effort. And maybe it's because they don't like receiving recognition. So it's a little bit harder for them to recognize others and feel comfortable and genuine in doing that. So over the past few years, we've worked really hard at Citizens to provide regular routines that support generating those opportunities to recognize our colleagues while keeping them flexible so that our managers and folks who really lean into recognition can personalize how they recognize their colleagues. So we've added structure while keeping it flexible so that it feels good to everybody involved. And I think part of that starts really at the top down. So we have those large organizational programs available that are going to recognize those top performers and do so with monetary awards, trips, things like that, which are fantastic, but they're not often, right? Those are things that occur annually, quarterly, and we really wanted to break that down and make sure that recognition was happening right away. I think that recognition is most valuable when it's timely and specific and genuine. And with that, we thought about, wow, how do we incorporate this into the things that we're already doing with our teams day to day? And how do we manage, like Jessica and Rebecca both talked about, the fact that our colleagues all like to be recognized in different ways? How do we provide a program that allows us to recognize a colleague who prefers something more private, as well as the colleague who wants us to shout them from the mountaintops and have all of those opportunities available? So we start with things that are simple but so meaningful and that our colleagues love, like an e-card program. Anybody in the company can send a recognition or a thank you note to another colleague. And the great thing about this is the manager is automatically copied. So if I tell somebody on Rebecca's team that they did a great job, Rebecca's going to know that as well, so that she can follow up or include that in a review or a one-on-one. And it's the perfect way to say a simple thank you to somebody who maybe doesn't want to be so exposed and so out there. For our colleagues who want to be shouted from the mountaintops, we've got that available. Managers, anyone who works for the organization can submit a shout out that we put on what we call our digital boards, which are these really large TV screens that we've got in our in-person sites. And we do share these slides on our intranet for those colleagues who work remotely. And the nice thing about our digital boards is it's great for corporate recognition, right? You did a great customer experience, your metrics have improved, your sales are phenomenal. But we also want to recognize that our colleagues are doing great things outside of work. And those are things that we also like to spotlight and share on our digital boards. So if somebody has a fantastic personal accomplishment, like a graduation, a new baby or fur baby joining their family, we have the format to recognize that as well. We all spend a lot of time at work, and there's always that crossover between work and personal. And it's important that we recognize our colleagues, not just for what they do for the company, but for who they are and the work that they're doing in their personal lives and the things that they're proud of. And I think that putting those milestones out there really brings our colleagues together and makes them feel valued as an individual, not just for the contributions they bring to the organization. And another area where we've really worked to include it is our teams all have daily missions. So we get together as our groups and we share our business updates, we share performance metrics, but the very first thing that we share is recognition. And to make sure that we don't miss it, we have a standardized template where you put all of this on a slide, and that recognition spot is there. And we allow that to be customized. So it's a great way to share recognition for whatever is a highlight of the day, where I think our larger organizational programs are really centered around a specific metric. This allows our managers to recognize someone for anything, whether it was helping out one of their peers, helping a customer, maybe stepping in and helping the manager themselves. And a lot of our managers also use this time to encourage peer-to-peer feedback. And I think that that's great because recognition has to be 360. Everybody should be able to recognize somebody else in the organization, and providing space for that really gets everybody involved and helps to spread that culture so that it becomes contagious and more people are saying thank you to the people that they work with.
Great. Thank you for that, Jess. And I've seen this in action. We did implement a standard team meeting board or a huddle. We call them huddles and missions, but 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, a manager pulls their team. Before the meeting was free form and it could focus on what the manager wanted. We wanted to bring some consistency to it. And part of that was that recognition. And it can be something as simple as, hey, Shelley, thank you for bringing in empanadas for the team today. It really boosted morale. Or it can be a customer compliment. It can be improved metrics. But it's anything that the team's going to find valuable. But it's part of our culture and it's part of our everyday. So our managers at first were a little like, oh, don't tell me how to run my meetings. But as it became part of our BAU day to day, it's embraced. And, we had to build it into the culture. And like Jess mentioned, we have an e-card system. It's part of our corporate culture. And I know when I'm writing at mid-year and annual reviews, I'm looking at how many times my managers have leveraged that e-card program, right? Because we do have to measure these things. And by measuring that, and recognizing my managers that do the most recognition, it creates more recognition. So it's good to leverage what does your company have in place, what can you bring to it, and how do you make it part of the day to day. So Jess, thanks for sharing that, and the team's done great work, and I'm hearing the theme with Rebecca and Jess from Maine Health as well. You're creating this culture, you're building in the routines, and then it just becomes part of the day to day. And doesn't it feel great? I mean, I don't know about you all, but I want to come to a company and a contact center where people feel good about working together and feel proud of what they're doing and recognized for it. Because again, it can be a very stressful job, but we're all in it together and helping each other. Jess, Niall, anything to add to Jess's question?
A little bit of two quick things. Positivity breeds positivity is what I was thinking as you were speaking. So absolutely, with our Moment to Shine program, we also get numbers and data, and I can see how much team members sent versus received, which is really great. And we actually, this past year, as part of our annual reviews, a lot of my team members recognized that they weren't utilizing that tool, and they actually made it one of their annual goals to send more Moment to Shines for a positive standpoint. The other thing I wanted to mention is it was really interesting that recognition was first in the meeting, because as I was thinking about it, ours are at the end to close out the meetings. But I like that idea as well. Having it at the forefront be the first thing, the most important topic is typically the first topic on your agenda. So that was a really nice idea as well. And I might bring that forward as a suggestion for Maine Health.
Thanks. And Rebecca.
I don't want to lead too much into the tools yet, because it's going to kind of lead into the next question. But I did want to point out that I love the way that you said that you have a space for kind of recognizing those personal achievements, those things outside of work. Because I think that that's such a huge piece of that, right? Like our people do so much, not just at work, but outside of work too. And there's so much that they have to be proud of. And it just really kind of fosters that culture of like that bring your whole self to work mentality. And I think that that is so great to really creating that very like open, community connected culture within environments within our call centers. So I love that you said that. And I think that's a great way to go about it for sure.
Okay, so very good lead in, because Rebecca, you're up for our next question. And I think it's so pertinent in our environment post-COVID. During COVID, everybody went home. And now slowly coming back, but we are always in the contact center going to have some level of a hybrid environment. And that's new for us because when everyone was home, we did things one way. When everybody was in the office, we did it another. But now we're managing teams that are blended. So Rebecca, what are some of the things that you're doing in a hybrid environment?
Yeah. So that's a great point. The hybrid model has definitely been, it's been a workhorse of its own challenges kind of presenting now, right? And especially, like I said, I came from branch life and now to this contact center world where I do have a team that works in a hybrid model. So it presents its own kind of challenges on how to do that. You're not sitting face to face with your people every day. And that can be a really difficult thing to kind of overcome and make sure that your people still feel seen and recognized. Luckily, we have a lot of tools at our fingertips these days. You know, it's 2024. We live in a tech world. So luckily, we've got a lot of things at our fingertips. Here at LCU, we have an internal recognition program through Paylocity. So basically, anybody, kind of like what Jess was saying, you know, anybody can go on and recognize each other, which is great. It's not just managers, not just leaders. It's peer-to-peer, which is an excellent way to go about it as well. Another huge way that we do this though is through teams, right? I'm sure as probably most of you are in the same boat, we basically live on teams all day. So we've kind of used this to be able to create a couple of spaces where we can really kind of have that recognition live. So we have a Celebrating Successes channel, and that one is for all of retail. So again, that's all the branches and the member service center. And that one can be used to shout out different success stories of things that employees are doing that are, you know, really above and beyond. But then we also have one just for the contact center as well, where not only can they recognize another team member, but they can also post their own success stories in there on things that they've done that make them feel good, right? Which I think is another really important point to make. You know, working in a hybrid model and especially in a call center, we can't be there 24/7 to always know all of the great things that our teams are doing. So kind of going back to that empowerment, right? Making sure that they feel that they're confident enough, like they feel empowered, and giving them a space to be able to shout themselves out, give themselves a pat on the back, and making sure that they have the confidence to do so because there's a designated space for that, right? And then that also not only, you know, it keeps you in the loop too. So it's going to make them feel better. It kind of drives some of that like friendly competition, right? That we know good things come out of, but it keeps you in the loop as well as a leader and a manager. We also have a treasure chest for physical rewards. So that is literally, it's a little treasure chest with a lock on it. And there's gift cards that are provided by our HR team. So when people do a great job, we can go in there and kind of jot down what we're giving it to them for, and we can present them with that. And that will do either, you know, it could be a group setting or privately, because again, as we've already talked about, you know, it's kind of specific to the individual and how they like to be recognized. But additionally, we also do these morning huddles, which are very geared around sales and service, yes, but a lot of that leads back to kind of creating that culture of recognition and community. So every day we have a virtual huddle before our queue turns on and the calls start coming in. And then we have an in-person huddle on Fridays because my team is luckily all here on Fridays. It's the one time that we get to see each other, which is great. So, you know, especially when I know it's been a hard week or a hard day, like I'll bring in, and I know that this is small, but all the small things add up and they all matter, right? So, you know, just bring them in donuts or some bagels or something along those lines, just the small things to say, hey, I see the hard work that you're doing and I recognize that and I value that. And I really appreciate the work that you all do. I think recognition too, another thing to remember is that it doesn't always have to be on an individual level specifically. You know, our teams work hard all together. And making sure that we're recognizing the hard work that they're doing as a team as well is just as important as recognizing those individual wins. So,
and you're so right. Recognizing a team is so important, especially in that hybrid environment when you're using teams and you have your group together. Recognizing the power of that team as a whole is important. And just yesterday, we had our director come into one of my team's meetings. She took over the huddle to recognize that entire team. Some are permanent remote, some are hybrid, but she came in and recognized them as a group for improving their handle time and asking them for their feedback, recognizing a few other things the team had done around agent care scores and surveys. And that went a long way, using the technology and not just an individual recognition. I will tell you that group got off the phone and you could feel that power that they got from that recognition. Like they were ready to take on the world. And it was so impressive. Jess, Pesta, anything to add?
We also do the missions, Rebecca, but our teams tend to do them on a team level when we think about like the MS Teams recognition. And I think one of the things is to remember, like, it's great to invite, like Aileen talked about, the director or other business partners in. Don't be afraid to ask somebody else. Sometimes as a manager, you can tell a colleague 1,000 times that they've done a great job, but sometimes you're my manager, you've got to tell me a great job. To help you recognize your teams and to get involved. I am an absolute like mission and team chat crasher. I will join any and all of them as often as I humanly possibly can, because it's so much fun to be able to see colleagues and celebrate their success, even if they don't report to me. So I think get people involved, especially in a hybrid environment, because it also allows colleagues that opportunity to see people that they don't get that casual interaction with that they would get in the office. In the office, people would walk past my desk and they would say hi. Now I'm at home, so this gives me an opportunity to get to know colleagues and for them to then be comfortable bringing me their ideas or bringing me problems that our team can resolve for them. So it's a nice way to positively share those moments to kind of build connections with others across the environment and across the organization.
Thanks, Jess. And again, it's so important for those that are hybrid that we're touching them every day. Even just recognizing that they're online, to say, hey, good morning, I see you. It is so important, but getting them together as a group, doing some group recognition and using the power of the tools that we have, right? Because you have lost some of that. I can recognize somebody by walking by their desk when they're on site. Hey, how's it going? You're doing a great job. It's a little bit more effort, but it's really well spent effort. Jessica Nile, anything to add before you get into our next question?
I think it was all said very well. I think the points that I was going to touch upon for that question was really around teams. One thing that my team does that is a little different than others, or I typically get a side-eye look, is when I let people know that my fabulous team does an all-day meeting. They are on a Teams chat from 5 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. And normally I get the, what is that all about? And really what it was allowing and fostering that collaboration. So we were also a team that we went remote during COVID, and we were thrown into a remote situation, and we needed to navigate how to do that. And what I was finding is my team members were feeling disconnected from each other. And we also had a new hire. So we wanted a new hire to feel comfortable. So we did an all-day Teams, and they absolutely loved it. I usually ask them about every 3 months if they want to change it. And they keep telling me no, and it's been 4 years. So we've, for 4 years, we've had an all-day Teams that they hang out on, and they talk about their dogs. They talk about the account they're working on. They talk about their weekend. They still get that inter-office communication that they missed before. So really, oh my gosh, that's great that you're going on a trip. Like that, it's those little things that we call it water cooler talk. We lost the water cooler talk when we went remote, and this fostered and allowed that. And what also allowed it is other teams jumping in if they had a question. So my team is quality, and they look at, the most difficult, challenging things that happen. and they have to unravel it. So a lot of times they're the experts that are pulled in, and other team members jump in and hang out with us across the organization as well. So that's fun too. So just allowing those spaces. And again, it keeps going back to what works for them. So just like in an individual situation, they may want recognition visually or privately or in front of the entire organization. How do they want their atmosphere to be as well as a team? Like if I implement it and there's no buy-in, it's not going to work. So really just hearing them, listening, hearing what they want, and keep checking in, because things change and that's okay. I'm a huge proponent for continuous improvement. I probably say it 50 times a week that I'm like, oh, that's a continuous improvement opportunity. Let's dive in. Same thing applies with recognition. What worked today may need to be modified for next year, and that's okay.
And one thing you just said I loved is that other departments come to your team because your team that recognizes them as the experts in the policy procedure. If you're doing quality, you really need to be top of your game and know the ins and outs of protecting the business and providing the best level of service to the client. So having other groups come in and recognize that for quality is so powerful. And I think our quality teams at times in contact centers get overlooked. Our managers will look at quality to be like, oh, quality is always looking at what we do wrong. No, quality is trying to help us be better. And we need to recognize that as well, because that is a big job and an important job. So I was glad to hear you have other departments coming in to do that recognition.
Absolutely.
Great. So we're off to our next question, and it's yours.
All right.
How has recognition improved your culture or the colleague sentiment and attrition rates?
Overall, it's positive and it's a powerful environment. When you have staff that feel recognized and valued, it fosters an environment that there's no stopping them. So, creativity is through the roof. If they feel comfortable with the peers and the leadership, that they're going to ask and suggest things that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And it might be the most amazing tool that'll help a patient, and it's innovated, a customer. So really just fostering that environment allows these team members to truly be themselves and take part of the organization. I think the other thing that I find super important, especially in our organization, is leadership is present, is visible, and most importantly, accessible. So when your leadership, your CEOs, your CFOs, all the C-suites, when they recognize you as a person and not a line level team member, and they value that, I think that goes a long way, especially when people, if you have surveys that ask if you feel part of your organization, do you feel connected to your mission and your goals? That's really where that comes from. And again, it's not recognizing that Jessica Nile did X today. It's that Jessica Nile's a human being as part of this organization, and they bring value. I think that's the recognition that people want. So overall, I think it's been, the last few years we've had with our new CEO, we've been able to foster that inclusive environment that has been really beneficial. And when it happens top down, you see some amazing results.
Right. That's where you get that engagement, right? People feel recognized for what they bring to work from the top down is so important. They feel heard, listened to. That is recognition, and that is where you get your engagement. And that is so incredibly powerful. So Rebecca, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so just kind of to your point, Aileen, and also to Jessica's, is about kind of being able to recognize our people for the value that they bring on an individual level, right? Especially like in that hybrid environment, again, like, we're asking, how does it improve culture? Culture is a really hard thing to be able to change when you're in that hybrid environment. And the recognition really is kind of that foundation for creating that really like engaged community environment. So just making sure that, again, I think the making sure that we're recognizing people for the value that they bring on an individual basis. I can say for sure for my team, just from when I came, we kind of transitioned from an operations department to retail, which is when I came into the member service center. And it was just a complete mindset shift. And it's been an incredible transition and change in the culture that we've really built up here. And like I said, the recognition piece really is the foundation for what's been able to make that. So
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And Jess Pesta, do you want to talk about some of the improvements to colleague sentiment that we've seen with some of the programs that have been adopted?
So I think, like most companies, we survey our colleagues on a regular basis as citizens. And one of the areas where we've really seen a strong increase in how our colleagues feel is around their connection with our manager. So we've seen almost a 10-point increase in how our colleagues feel about how their manager supports their growth and development, as well as how colleagues feel about how their manager is giving them feedback. Making sure that our managers are providing recognition on a regular basis almost earns them the right to give that corrective or constructive feedback, because they're seen as balanced, they're seen as supportive and caring. And we've seen that just continue to grow the more we build and incorporate recognition into our culture. And the more that we include it in our coaching sessions, I think the more receptive our colleagues are when it comes to talking about their areas of opportunity, because we always make sure we're telling them and identifying the areas where they did well, whether it's on a specific call, over their scorecard for the month, and then leading into here's what we can do to make those numbers stronger and make your performance better for the future. And here's not just how we can make you better at your current role, but how can we develop you for what's going to come next for you down the line? And I think you have to earn that by giving your colleagues balanced feedback. You can't constantly point out just their areas of opportunity. We have to identify where they're doing well, recognize it, so they continue to repeat those positive behaviors. If you don't recognize it, they might be confused and stop doing something that you really think they do well.
I agree. And it, again, it goes back to the culture and having your managers learn how to do it well. We don't want to just go with the sandwich approach to say, oh, well, we know we have some negative feedback, so we're going to say, oh, don't you look nice today? By the way, your AHT is up 200 seconds. And how's your dog? No, it's, hey, you're doing great at XYZ. How have you done it? Let's really engage. Let's talk about how to improve going forward. And again, it's genuine, it's consistent, it's part of the culture. And once you get there, it's a really sweet place to be. So I'm going to end our last question with Jess Pesta. What works and what doesn't work, and how are you keeping it fresh? And then we'll have Rebecca and Jess Niall feed in, and then we'll jump into some Q&A.
So I think one of the things that Jessica and Rebecca both touched on early is it's so important to know your colleague. What doesn't work is giving your colleague feedback that doesn't match how they like to receive it. And I'm a personal victim of receiving recognition that I did not appreciate. Really early in my career, the recognition that I was presented in my early 20s was attending dinner with a client and senior leaders from the organization. I was terrified. I didn't want to go, and the dinner was in the middle of my shift. So it was like, leave, go to dinner, come back, continue working. I will put it out there, this was not at Citizens. So Aileen, you're safe, you didn't do it. But at the end of the day, I came back from this dinner that was supposed to make me feel really good about the work that I had done. And instead, I was a nervous wreck the entire time. I didn't want to eat. And then I had missed 2 hours of my shift and ended up having to work late to like make up the time that I was out of the office at the dinner, because stuff still had to get done. Needless to say, I did not want to receive that piece of recognition ever again during my career. And I worked really hard to make sure that I was not on that list because of how uncomfortable I felt. It's important to know your colleagues. If you don't know your colleagues and you don't know them individually as well as what works for your organization and your demographics, you're not going to succeed with recognition. That means talking to your colleagues that report to you directly one-on-one and understanding what they need, and also understanding that that can change over time. So do check-ins. Maybe the colleague 5 years ago who didn't want public recognition is starting to want to grow their career now. So they'd like to be a little more in the spotlight. Know your colleagues.
And change it up.
Change it up. It's okay to try new things. And I think as far as keeping it fresh, one, you have to keep things timely. Don't wait 6 months to recognize somebody. Do it as soon as humanly possible when somebody has done something great, and look for different reasons. It's so easy to every single week look at the top of your scorecard and say, wow, Joe did great. He's got the lowest AHT on the team. That's going to get stale if you're always recognizing Joe for his AHT. Look around, look for opportunities. They are out there. And if you don't see them, ask somebody else to help you identify them. Ask your team to nominate their peers, right? Who's been doing really well? Who should I recognize? It's okay to crowdsource those things. And it's good to constantly go out and get a refresh, because what your colleagues loved 2 or 3 years ago is going to be different today. Check in and listen.
Absolutely. It does get stale as a pizza party. So listen, there's always a time for pizza, but a pizza party every month when it's busy to recognize one team gets a little bit stale. So, maybe do a poll. What do people want? I know the Pittsburgh teams got sick of pizza. So, we asked them, we're going to have a team event, a team award. We want to recognize, what do you want? Right. It can't always be just some cookies and some pizza for the contact center. You've got to talk to the team, see what do they want. Sometimes we had one year where we had colleagues, they wanted more development time. So they wanted to be recognized with time away from the phone to develop their career, to job shadow in other areas. And we have the power to make that happen. And isn't that a great way to recognize a top performer? Instead of just saying, hey, oh, wow, another great job. Here's a certificate. How about, wow, you're really doing great. You've excelled at XYZ. Where do you think your next step is? Recognize them with an hour away from phones to go shadow somebody. We've got that ability to do that for our teams and our top performers. That gets them more engaged, gets them thinking, and it's something different. Rebecca, anything to add?
Yeah, so I think one-on-ones, like those really like individualized one-on-ones that we have with our teams, I think those are a great opportunity, a great time to kind of make sure that what you are doing does work. I'm so glad too that you said, Jess Pessa, about how like to make sure that, check in, see if it's changed, because so much can change in even just a year. People change, what they want can change, their careers. That was a great point. But one-on-ones are really your time anyways as a manager to kind of ask for feedback on what you can do to better support your team. And recognition is just another piece of that. So using that as a designated time to really ask like, hey, like, what more can I do to make you feel supported and valued and recognized for the job that you're doing? Is there anything different? Or even for the team? Or again, maybe bringing in Jess Pessa's idea of, saying, hey, like, is there anybody on the team that you feel like has been doing a really great job that you would like to recognize for something too? So.
And so, Jess, Niall, why don't we let you have the last few comments, and then John, we could hand it over to you for some Q&A.
So I get to say my favorite 2 words again: continuous improvement. So continuous improvement, that is the showcase of everything I do. And this is no different. So exactly what Jess and Rebecca were saying, and yourself, is that things can change. And what worked yesterday may not work today, and that's okay. And just inviting them in their one-on-ones, in your team huddles. Also seeing something, say something. Don't wait 3 weeks to tell them in a one-on-one that you have scheduled. Like, it's okay if you stop and tell them, or send them a quick chat or a text or whatever it might be, so they know that you're there and you're seeing things. The other thing I do with my one-on-ones is I end all my one-on-ones with 2 questions, which is, on a scale of 1 to 10, because we work from home, how is your work-life balance? And I always want to make sure that balance is there for the team members, because we do work isolated. A lot of times we're the only ones in the home during the day. So I want to make sure that work-life balance is there for them. And then 2, any concerns, anything you need more or less of from me. So you may need more from me, but quite honestly, you may need a little less of me, and that's okay. Just let me know. So I ask my team those questions as well.
I love that because you're recognizing them as a person and what's important, and giving them the opportunity to genuinely bring that up. And work-life balance is an important thing to recognize, right? Especially as the workplace culture changes. Work-life balance is a key importance for our colleagues. That's really where it's at. The days of bragging about I gave back 10 vacation days or I worked an 80-hour week. We have a different workforce now, and recognizing that that's important is a real key to success in our environment. So thank you so much for sharing that. John, I think we have like 10 or 11 questions in the chat.
Yeah, we've got a few questions. Yep, for sure. And I did want to also mention that I think sometimes, and you guys didn't specifically mention this, but sometimes people on the team are really constantly sort of asking for recognition, right? And so the dog that we had on during the presentation today, I think was asking for recognition. So I think it's just really important to understand that all the team members deserve some recognition at different times. So anyways, just having some fun there. So yeah, one of the key questions that we got, I do want to come to some good feedback about asking people how they want to be recognized. So important. And Aileen, I appreciated your joke about the pizza party because we got to the point at times in our companies I managed in, where it's like, oh my God, what food is it going to be now, and so really understanding what people want. But one of the questions we got was, how do you get buy-in from leadership? And I think it also relates a little bit to a question I'm going to ask in a second too. So, what advice do you guys have? I know there was one comment, I don't know if that was from Jess Pesta, but that's basically said, I think it's important to share colleague sentiment with your leaders so they understand the impact that recognition has. I can also start at the ground. It can also start at the ground level. I think recognition is contagious, so don't feel afraid to start providing recognition while you wait for leaders to buy in. So that was some good feedback. But that was the key question. How do you get that buy-in? Which made me think about two things that I'll just plant these seeds with you guys. One was research. So what research or information do you have that supports some of these programs and these notions? And then I heard Jess Pesta mention this. She said 10-point move. So that says to me, somebody's doing a pulse survey and really trying to understand feedback, probably on an annual basis at a minimum, from their staff. So they'll put those out there as part of the answer maybe to that question.
Sure. So buy-in from a leadership down is so important. And, fortunately at Citizens, colleague is one of our 4 core values, right? So, customer, colleague, community, and shareholder. We are a bank. But colleague is a part of it, of what's important to us. And if we don't get it right for our colleagues, we'll never get it right for our customers. So from a corporate level down, we do have excellent support about recognition in the workplace. So some of the things that Jess Pesta put together with her leadership team, it was easy to get buy-in because our leadership was hungry for what's going to work in your environment. Right. So we didn't have to sell it very hard. And then when you do a organizational health pulse survey and you see that type of movement, boy, you get buy-in really quick. So for us, I'm very fortunate to work at the company. And Jess, you probably feel the same way. Now, buy-in to get some time off phones is a little bit different. We really have to work with our workforce teams to prove that we can have people off phone. Yesterday, we had a recognition event for our highest NPS scoring agents in 2023 in each of our business lines. We needed to get them off phone, but, we worked with our workforce team and our leaders, able to get them into a room. That's an annual award, a big deal. But we needed to work it into our business and make sure we had the right amount of staff in place to support it. But in contact center, I think we get used to doing our due diligence to make sure we're not going to impact the customer experience. We're not going to make the life of our colleague more challenging to attend something like that. But I don't know, Jess, Niall, if you've had to get buy-in at your company for some of the recognition programs.
Yeah, I think for me, two things come to mind. Lead by example. So if I am making it a priority and bringing it to my one-on-ones with my leadership and bringing those suggestions forward, I think that goes a long way. And then also managing up. So if anybody has ever had to manage up before, it's a unique experience and an exercise that I ask everybody to do because it works in work and outside of work. Like when you have to manage up, it's a very unique skill set that you can hone in on and help foster that relationship with your leader to then kind of get what you're looking for the organization complete. So if it's important to you, it's important that you bring that to your leadership in many different facets. You just have to find what works for your leader and you to make it a priority.
Great, thank you. And I know, John, we're at 1:00. We have this scheduled to 1:30 for people that are able to stay for some more Q&A. We may wrap a little bit sooner than that, but for those of you that are already running late to a 1:00 meeting, I do have the feedback QR code up. So please take a chance to give us some feedback if you do need to jump. And we're going to just continue with some questions until we hit 1:30 or we run out of questions.
That's right. And yeah, can you guys maybe comment? Because I know it was very impactful for me, aside from the recognition aspect, there's also the notion of recognizing your staff by asking for their input. And some people have commented here about, geez, I'd freeze up if somebody asked me how I want to be recognized, whatever. How do you draw that out? But the other one I do want to come back to is that sort of notion of the pulse survey. It was very impactful for me when I was part of the TD Bank culture. Just super valuable to get that feedback as a leader on, what's the temperature of the room, right? Like, how are people doing? And so just, again, another important aspect of this that's sort of on a grander scale, and certainly for those in smaller organizations, not an impossible thing to do without engaging a formal organization to help you do those kind of surveys. But the key thing always with a survey is, if you're going to do it, push out the results. You got to give the feedback back to everybody. And then obviously there's some accountability built in there, because there'll be things that you need to act on, or at least say, we can't have hot and cold running beer here in the contact center. I'm sorry. So, just a really important thing to make sure you give that feedback. So,
and it could be as easy as a pulse survey with SurveyMonkey, right? For our
Yeah.
smaller organizations, right? Citizens, we're big and we have some different tools available to us, but I've been in very small contact centers, and you can use a SurveyMonkey, do an anonymous survey, pulse check, even if it's a happy face or a sad face or in between, to see how people are feeling. But you're right, when you do ask for that, you need to recognize that people have responded. You have to recognize that what they've given you has value, even if you don't want to hear it. But you need to follow up, and that is really key, because you want your teams to trust that you're going to take action. It's not just to paint a picture that everybody's happy and rosy, right? What an opportunity you have if everybody's either flat or sad. You've got some work to do, and it doesn't always have to be heavy lifting, but you've got to face it, and you've got to put in some formal recognition programs. And it's not just solved with a pizza party, right? It needs to become part of your everyday working culture. Sometimes that is very easy for us to put back of mind. You have calls in queue, you have customers to take care of. There's always a fire to put out. So if you don't operationalize it and make it part of your everyday, it can be difficult, but do the little bit of heavy lifting, put some things in place, make it part of your culture. You will see a difference.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, we do annual reviews through a company. We're a large organization as well. So a company comes in, a third party, and we provide feedback. And what I found with this team, we've been doing it for 4 years now. And what I found was it was only important when it was time for the survey. So instead, we implemented on my team years ago, we implemented a quarterly pulse of what you were talking about, where we were identifying. So my engagement survey results have never been a surprise. And they haven't been a surprise from the higher level because I did a quarterly pulse with them and made it a priority. And we do a whole PowerPoint. We meet for an hour and a half. We go through an exercise and we create action items to implement for our lower scoring items. And we did that. For the first year, we did it actually every single month. And then we went to quarterly and we went to 6 months. And we did that because of the continuous improvement and the feedback back from the team members that they didn't need to do it as often because they felt they were heard in other forums where we have shift briefings and one-on-ones. So it was another progression of I did it every month and now I'm quarterly and now I'm every 6 months. And then we have it with our yearly company. So if you don't want it to be a surprise, I totally agree. Create that pulse and make sure you're on and that you follow through. So you do the survey and make it a priority to follow through and provide the feedback as close to the time you did the survey as possible.
It's such time well spent. It's for the resource hours that it takes and the time it takes you, you will benefit, your company will benefit, your customers will benefit. Because if you're not doing these things and you're not recognizing, you will see attrition, you will see colleagues that are not as engaged. So, you know, Jessica, I'm glad you shared that because it really is just so important, no matter the size of your organization. If you have a 10-person shop or you have a 1,000-person shop, you know, it is such valuable time spent because we all know how long it takes to find the right people, train them and get them to productivity. You know, if we can retain the right people, even if they're, you know, we retain them, but they're growing in other areas of your business, it's serving you and your customers well. So take the time to be very prescriptive about it.
Yep. No, that's good stuff. And somebody, Angela had commented, I love the idea of peer-to-peer recognition. But now that our team is mostly fully remote, it seems challenging to find ways to allow the team to foster those one-on-one comments and or pieces of feedback, if you will. And I think, you know, Jessica, you know, it's great to hear about, you know, the all-day teams meeting. You know, not everyone can do that depending on the nature of the work they're doing. But some of the comments that came in after that question commented on having, you know, a Slack channel that's open. You know, historically in environments I managed in, you know, folks had the ability to chat, you know, with each other, whether it's going to lunch or, geez, I'm stuck on something. Can somebody help me with this? So that kind of community sense is another way, I think, there. Any thoughts on that besides, you know, maybe the all-day teams meeting or the Slack channels or things, using those as ways to, so everyone sees, you know, that sort of quick recognition? Just some thoughts there.
So I kind of want to jump in here a little bit. And I don't know if this is, you know, I understand this might not be something that everybody is able to do. So Angela, to your question, I'm not sure if this is something that's you would be able to do in your environment, but kind of going back to what I mentioned before about the morning huddles, you know, like I said, this was an initiative that was started by our head of retail for kind of gearing like a focus each week and each day on very sales and service related. But what I found that for my team, it's been a really, really great way to keep and continue that connection, that one-to-one connection with each other. You know, we get on there. So technically I run the huddles from 8:15 to 8:30, which is when our call queue turns on. But my team will hop in at 8 o'clock because they spend that first 15 minutes just kind of chatting, telling each other about, you know, what they did the night before, kind of just Niles, the water talk, the water cooler talk. And so that honestly has been such a great tool in order to really create that kind of community. You know, where we're not seeing each other. Like I said, the only day that we see each other all in person is on Friday, one day a week. And so it's just been a really, really great way to keep everybody really connected and keep that kind of team, family, community feel. And then we have our Teams chat, you know, that runs, it's not a call, but, you know, just the regular Teams chat just for my team. And, you know, they're great about helping each other in there. And so that kind of helps build that too. But I don't think that it would be nearly as much of that kind of community feel if we weren't having that 15 minutes of connection all together every single morning. So that honestly, and like I said, I know it might not be possible for everybody's team, but I know for mine, it's been really beneficial to provide that.
Time well spent. Sometimes we have to carve out the time. If we don't think it's available, we have to figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, it sounds just Pesta, like in your environment, creating a little bit of that, for lack of a better term, online culture is having everybody kind of rotate some responsibility for the question of the day. I saw your comment there. That's a neat idea. Just, making sure everybody's engaged in that community, if you will, right?
Even not just with the question of the day, right? If you've got a team that has some team members that are tenured, remember that as the manager, you don't always have to be the one sharing the knowledge or sharing the information. It can be a great development opportunity, and honestly, a way to recognize some of your top performers is to say, hey, you're really knowledgeable about whether it's a system, a program, a process, procedure, or a soft skill that they have, and let them present that to the team and kind of share that spotlight. So it doesn't all have to be on the manager. And I think you can look for opportunities to highlight your colleagues and give them places to step in. And now their peers get to know them a little bit better. Of course, with the colleagues' consent and their interest, because we don't want to put anybody on the spotlight who's uncomfortable with it. But there's a lot of ways to rotate that through, whether it's, I've seen teams who have, a colleague bring a quote of the week every week about how the team is going to perform, right? So a motivational quote that they share. There was a team that I visited who once a week they did a dad joke of the week, right? Because that fit their team environment, kind of their age group. So make it your own, and you can get your team's input on what they might think is fun.
Jess,
what's a dad joke?
Yeah, Jess,
don't ask me to tell one.
Hey, did you know that dogs can't do MRIs, but cats can?
Oh man! Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I was just gonna say, what's a dad joke? I don't know. No,
You
right?
should know them.
Don't ask my kids. Yeah. So,
John, it looks like your questions have kind of slowed down.
Yeah. No, there's one I just wanted to comment on here. Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up soon here. First of all, I just wanted to say there's been a lot of comments of recognition to this panel. So first of all, thank you to you guys. Really just a great job and a lot of nuggets. I know I've got some notes here about some things that I thought were really just great. The other thing that was interesting was, this kind of keys off of what Jess was just talking about with, it's not all on the manager, right? So, it's the old, oh God, I'm going to date myself. There's an old Virginia Woolf novel, Mrs. Dalloway, where she knows the party's starting because the wind blows and the curtain comes, blowing into the room, and the guests, get the curtain under control and close the window. She knows they're now engaged in the party, right? And so that's a really big thing, I think, in any culture. And so one of the comments here was about having a steering committee, right? So maybe I'm not as comfortable bringing stuff up, but I know that Jess or Rebecca's on the steering committee. Hey, I know you guys are meeting every Friday, whatever it is. Here's some thoughts I have. So that's another great way to not only recognize some people on the steering committee who might be more engaged in the culture, but also help draw more peer-to-peer interaction out in the environment. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So it's a good way to recognize people with a lot of ideas. Let them have a say in the recognition.
The only other thing I want to just mention before we wrap up to you guys was just, I think some of you have alluded to it, is for me, and I used to joke about this, is who's the minister of fun, right? So I think in any environment, as much as, the recognition's important, having people engaged, all this stuff, but then it's and I think, you mentioned it with the dad joke, what are the things, who's running the trivia for the day or the week, little things like that just are they're a diversion, but not in a debilitating way, right? They're about, you know, having some fun with, given that we're all, let's be real, trapped to a certain extent on our seat looking at a screen, right, for the day. So any thoughts there about kind of newsletters or fun things that you guys do to just kind of keep things light, keep things fresh during the day?
I used to do a recipe of the week.
Ooh,
And that one went pretty well. And when we were on site in the office, we actually created a book, and everybody volunteered their favorite recipe, and then we put it in an actual binding machine, and had it all laminated. It looked really fancy. And we shared that in the office. But outside of the office, we did recipe of the week, and everybody gave me a recipe. And then that was one of those continuous improvements where they didn't want to do that anymore. So we don't do that one anymore.
funny. That's all right. Hey, listen, I think we had a great group here today. I appreciate all the comments and those that attended and are still on. So we probably hit a peak of 50 some odd people on, and we still have 30 participants with us. So thank you everybody for sharing part of your day with us, and especially to the panel for a great NECCF event. And Aileen, thanks for your leadership on driving this puppy. So appreciate it. Puppy, haha. Oh. Hashtag
We love our
dad joke.
dogs.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks, guys. So unless there's anything else, I'm going to end the meeting. And again, appreciate everybody's time and involvement.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Just a plug for our June 4th Expo. I'm hoping to see quite a few there. And I see planned events before the expo. Maybe one, keep an eye on our LinkedIn page. If you have not already followed us on LinkedIn, please do. We'll be posting any other events. I know that there's some in-person events that happen throughout the year, but the expo is the big one. Great opportunity to bring some frontline managers to get them some exposure in this local environment. So I'm looking forward to meeting you all there. And with that, I will wrap up and just say thank you, everybody, for your time, attention, and excellent insight.
Yeah. Thanks, panel. Take care, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a
Thank
great day.
you.
Yep. Bye-bye.